The cell is the basic unit of life. There are millions of different types of cells. There are cells that are organisms by themselves, such as microscopic amoeba and bacteria cells. And there are cells which are a part of a larger organism, such as the cells that make up your body. The cell is the smallest unit of life in our bodies.
ਵਿਦਿਆਰਥੀਓ, ਜਿਵੇਂ ਕਿ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਜਾਣਦੇ ਹੋ ਕਿ ਹਰ ਇੱਕ ਸਜੀਵ ਸੈੱਲਾਂ ਦਾ ਬਣਿਆ ਹੈ। ਸੈੱਲ ਕਈ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਦੇ ਹੁੰਦੇ ਹਨ ਅਤੇ ਸੈੱਲਾਂ ਦੇ ਡਿਫਰੈਂਟ ਆਰਗੇਨੇਲੀਜ਼ ਹੁੰਦੇ ਹਨ। ਵੱਖ-ਵੱਖ ਕਿਸਮਾਂ ਦੇ ਸੈੱਲਸ ਵੱਖ-ਵੱਖ ਕੰਮ ਕਰਦੇ ਹਨ। ਸੈੱਲਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਬਹੁਤ ਸਾਰੇ ਫੈਕਟਰਸ ਦੇ ਆਧਾਰ ਤੇ ਵੱਖ-ਵੱਖ ਕੈਟੇਗਰੀਜ਼ ਵਿੱਚ ਕਲਾਸੀਫਾਈ ਕੀਤਾ ਜਾ ਸਕਦਾ ਹੈ। ਪਰ ਮੁੱਖ ਤੌਰ ਤੇ ਇਹ ਸਾਰੇ ਸੈੱਲ ਦੋ ਮੁੱਖ ਸ਼੍ਰੇਣੀਆਂ ਵਿੱਚ ਵੰਡੇ ਹੋਏ ਹਨ, ਪ੍ਰੋਕੈਰੀਓਟਿਕ ਸੈੱਲ ਅਤੇ ਯੂਕੈਰੀਓਟਿਕ ਸੈੱਲ। ਅੱਜ ਦੇ ਇਸ ਪਾਠ ਵਿੱਚ ਅਸੀਂ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਬਾਰੇ ਡਿਟੇਲ ਵਿੱਚ ਗੱਲਬਾਤ ਕਰਾਂਗੇ। Today we will study all about cell wall, cell membranes and about these two types of cells, that is prokaryotic and eukaryotic. How do these two types of cells differ from each other? Do they have something in common? All these questions and more will be answered in our topic for today. But first, let me share the learning objectives for today's lesson.
On completion of this topic, learners will be able to define prokaryotic cell and eukaryotic cell, compare prokaryotic cell with eukaryotic cell, give examples of prokaryotic and eukaryotic organisms, discuss about cell wall, explain cell membranes in detail.
The cell is the smallest living component of an organism and is the basic unit of life. Based on the organization of their cellular structures, biologists kept on classifying the cells into different types. True nucleus ਦੀ presence ਜਾਂ absence ਦੇ ਆਧਾਰ ਤੇ ਸੈੱਲਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਦੋ ਗਰੁੱਪਸ ਵਿੱਚ ਵੰਡਿਆ ਗਿਆ ਹੈ। ਇਸ ਲਈ ਸੈੱਲਾਂ ਦੀਆਂ ਦੋ ਬੇਸਿਕ ਟਾਈਪਸ ਹਨ, ਪ੍ਰੋਕੈਰੀਓਟਿਕ ਸੈੱਲ ਅਤੇ ਯੂਕੈਰੀਓਟਿਕ ਸੈੱਲ। ਆਓ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਇੱਕ-ਇੱਕ ਕਰਕੇ ਡਿਸਕਸ ਕਰੀਏ। ਪ੍ਰੋਕੈਰੀਓਟਿਕ ਸੈੱਲ। Now the question is, what is a prokaryotic cell? A cell which does not have a well-defined nucleus is known as prokaryotic cell. ਹੁਣ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਦਿਮਾਗ ਵਿੱਚ ਇਹ ਸਵਾਲ ਜ਼ਰੂਰ ਉੱਠ ਗਿਆ ਹੋਵੇਗਾ ਕਿ ਇਹ well-defined nucleus ਕੀ ਹੈ? When the genetic material present in a cell is bounded by a nuclear membrane, the nucleus formed is known as a defined nucleus, sometimes also known as true nucleus. All organisms which have prokaryotic cells are known as prokaryotes. So what is there in prokaryotes? In fact, in prokaryotes, the nuclear material is not confined in a bounded structure. That means there is no membrane around it. It is simply one long strand or loop of deoxyribonucleic acid, which lies naked in the cytoplasm. Let us see how.
Prokaryotic cell. This type of cell is simple in structure with no major recognizable organelles. They have an outer cell wall that gives them shape. Just under the rigid cell wall is the cell membrane. The cytoplasm is enclosed within the cell membrane. Here you can see that the genetic material is naked. There is no membrane around this genetic material.
Students, common examples of the prokaryotic cell type are all bacteria. because all bacteria do not have a membrane-bound nucleus. In fact, prokaryotic is Greek word which means before nucleus. Besides bacteria, the cyanobacteria or blue-green algae are a major group of prokaryotes. Most prokaryotic organisms are single-celled, such as bacteria and blue-green algae. These are generally smaller and multiply more rapidly than the eukaryotic cells. Let us discuss another type of cell, that is eukaryotic cell. The term eukaryote means true nucleus. Eukaryotic cell possesses a distinct nucleus and distinct organelles. Distinct nucleus means a true nucleus bound by a double membrane. The eukaryotes include all the protists, plants, animals and fungi. Eukaryotic cells are more complex. It is proved that they have evolved from a prokaryote-like predecessor. They contain internal membrane-bound structures called cell organelles. For example, most of the living organisms that we are typically familiar with are composed of eukaryotic cells, like animals, plants, fungi, etc. Eukaryotic organisms can either be single-celled or multi-celled. Let us see how.
Eukaryotic cell. This is a typical eukaryotic cell. The nucleus is the most prominent organelle in any eukaryotic cell. It is enclosed in a double membrane. It communicates with the surrounding cytosol via these numerous nuclear pores. Eukaryotic cell also contains other internal membrane-bound structures called organelles. These cellular organelles, like mitochondria, endoplasmic reticulum, etc., carry out many functions required for a cell to survive, grow, and reproduce.
This particular eukaryotic cell happens to be an animal cell, but the cells of plants, fungi, and protists are also eukaryotic. So, eukaryotic cell is a cell that contains membrane-bound organelles in which specific metabolic activities take place. Most important among these organelles is the nucleus, which contains the DNA. It is this nucleus that gives the eukaryote its literal meaning, true nucleus. Eukaryotic organisms also have other specialized membrane-bounded structures, which are small structures within a cell that perform dedicated functions. ਅਸੀਂ ਦੋਹਾਂ ਹੀ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਦੇ ਸੈੱਲਾਂ ਪ੍ਰੋਕੈਰੀਓਟਿਕ ਅਤੇ ਯੂਕੈਰੀਓਟਿਕ ਸੈੱਲਸ ਬਾਰੇ ਵਿਚਾਰ ਕੀਤਾ ਹੈ। ਇਹਨਾਂ ਵਿੱਚ ਪ੍ਰਤੱਖ ਡਿਫਰੈਂਸਸ ਹੋਣ ਦੇ ਬਾਵਜੂਦ ਦੋਹਾਂ ਸੈੱਲਾਂ ਵਿੱਚ ਬਹੁਤ ਕੁਝ ਕਾਮਨ ਹੈ। ਆਓ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਕੰਪੇਅਰ ਕਰੀਏ।
Prokaryotic cell and eukaryotic cell. Both these cells perform most of the same kinds of functions and in the same ways. Both are enclosed by plasma membranes, filled with cytoplasm, and loaded with small structures called ribosomes.
Despite all of these similarities, the differences are also clear. It is pretty obvious from the two pictures you just saw that there are general differences between these two cell types: size and complexity. Eukaryotic cells are much larger and much more complex than prokaryotic cells. Prokaryotic cells are found in simple organisms including bacteria and cyanobacteria, whereas eukaryotic cells are found in complex organisms including all plants and animals. ਜੇ ਅਸੀਂ ਇਨ੍ਹਾਂ ਸੈੱਲਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਨੇੜਿਓਂ ਵੇਖੀਏ ਤਾਂ ਅਸੀਂ ਇਨ੍ਹਾਂ ਦੋਨੋਂ ਟਾਈਪਸ ਦੇ ਸੈੱਲਾਂ ਵਿੱਚ ਬਹੁਤ ਸਾਰੇ ਡਿਫਰੈਂਸਸ ਵੇਖਾਂਗੇ। ਆਓ ਵੇਖੀਏ।
Differences between prokaryotic cell and eukaryotic cell. Eukaryotic cells contain a nucleus and many other organelles, each surrounded by a membrane. Prokaryotic cell lacks a nucleus and other membrane-bounded organelles. Eukaryotic DNA is linear. Prokaryotic DNA is circular as it has no ends. Both cell types have many ribosomes, but the ribosomes of the eukaryotic cells are larger and more complex than those of the prokaryotic cell. The cytoplasm of eukaryotic cells is filled with a large, complex collection of organelles, many of them enclosed in their own membranes. The prokaryotic cell contains no membrane-bound organelles.
ਇਸ ਲਈ ਵਿਦਿਆਰਥੀਓ, ਕੀ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਦੱਸ ਸਕਦੇ ਹੋ ਕਿ ਪ੍ਰੋਕੈਰੀਓਟਿਕ ਅਤੇ ਯੂਕੈਰੀਓਟਿਕ ਸੈਲਸ ਵਿੱਚ ਕੀ ਕਾਮਨ ਹੈ? Yes, both have DNA as their genetic material. Both are covered by a cell membrane. Both have ribosomes, the structures on which proteins are made. Both regulate the flow of the nutrients and wastes that enter and leave them. Both require a supply of energy. Till here we discussed that all cells fall into two broad groups, prokaryotes and eukaryotes. Prokaryotic cells are smaller and lack much of the internal compartmentalization and complexity of eukaryotic cells. No matter which type of cell we are considering, all cells have certain features in common, such as a cell wall, cell membrane, DNA or RNA, cytoplasm and ribosomes. So let us now focus on main components of cell, that is, cell wall and cell membranes. Let us start with cell wall. As you may recall, a non-living rigid structure called the cell wall forms an outer covering for the plasma membrane of fungi and plants. The plant cell wall is a remarkable structure. The cell wall is rigid and gives plant cells a much defined shape. While most cells have an outer membrane, none is comparable in strength to the plant cell wall. The cell wall is the major reason for the difference between plant and animal cells. Because the plant has evolved this rigid structure, they have lost the opportunity to develop nervous system, immune system, and most importantly, mobility. Let us see how plant cell wall looks like.
Plant cell wall. One of the most important distinguishing features of plant cells is the presence of a cell wall. The main chemical components of the primary plant cell wall include cellulose in the form of organized microfibrils. Cellulose provides a protected framework for a plant cell to survive. In addition, the cell wall contains two groups of branched polysaccharides, the pectins and cross-linking glycans. Organized into a network with the cellulose microfibrils, the cross-linking glycans increase the tensile strength of the cell wall, whereas the coextensive network of pectins provides the cell wall with the ability to resist compression. A specialized region associated with the cell walls of plants and sometimes considered an additional component of them is the middle lamella. Rich in pectins, the middle lamella is shared by neighboring cells and cements them firmly together.
The thickness as well as the composition and organization of cell walls can vary significantly. The cell wall is composed of cellulose fiber, polysaccharides and proteins. In new cells, the cell wall is thin and not very rigid. This allows the young cell to grow. The first cell wall of these growing cells is called the primary cell wall. When the cell is fully grown, it may retain its primary wall, sometimes thickening it, or it may deposit new layers of a different material called the secondary cell wall. Cell walls and cellulose allow plants to grow to great heights. While you have a skeleton to hold you up, a 100-foot tall redwood tree does not. It uses the strong cell walls to maintain its shape. So, cell wall is really very important as it gives shape to the cell and protects the cell from mechanical damage and infection. विद्यार्थियों, सेल वॉल बारे पढ़न तो बाद आओ हुण सेल मेम्ब्रेन ते ध्यान केंद्रित करिए. The cell membrane is probably the most important organelle in the cell. It holds the cell together and keeps everything intact. The cell membrane, also called the plasma membrane or plasmalemma, is one biological membrane separating the interior of a cell from the outside environment. The cell membrane surrounds all cells and it is selectively permeable, controlling the movement of substances in and out of cells. It contains a wide variety of biological molecules, primarily proteins and lipids, which are involved in a variety of cellular processes. Let us look at the cell membrane and see how that membrane keeps all the organelles inside.
Cell membrane. Cell membrane is composed of lipids that are arranged in a bilayer. These lipids are arranged within the membrane with the polar heads towards the outer sides and the hydrophobic tails towards the inner part facing each other. This ensures that the non-polar tail of saturated hydrocarbons is protected from the aqueous environment. Cell membranes also possess proteins and carbohydrates. Proteins can be classified as integral proteins and peripheral proteins. Peripheral proteins lie on the surface of the membrane, while the integral proteins are partially or totally buried in the membrane. Integral protein molecules act as carrier proteins for active transport of substances in and out of the cell. Certain other elements may also be present along the length of the cell membrane. These structures include globular proteins, which are peripherally placed and are only at times associated with the cell. There is one important structure that is additionally present, which are known as cholesterol molecules, which aid the phospholipids in making the membrane impermeable to water-soluble substances.
ਮੈਂਬਰੇਨ ਬਾਰੇ ਜਾਣਨ ਲਈ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਇਮੇਜਿਨ ਕਰੋ ਕਿ ਇਹ ਇੱਕ ਵੱਡੇ ਪਲਾਸਟਿਕ ਬੈਗ ਦੀ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਹੈ ਜਿਸ ਵਿੱਚ ਕੁਝ ਟਾਈਨੀ ਹੋਲਸ ਹਨ. ਇਹ ਇਮੈਜਨਰੀ ਬੈਗ ਸੈੱਲ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਸਾਰੇ ਸੈੱਲ ਆਰਗੇਨੇਲੀ ਅਤੇ ਫਲੂਇਡਸ ਨੂੰ ਆਪਣੇ ਅੰਦਰ ਜਮਾ ਰੱਖਦਾ ਹੈ ਅਤੇ ਖਰਾਬ ਚੀਜ਼ਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਸੈੱਲ ਤੋਂ ਬਾਹਰ ਰੱਖਦਾ ਹੈ। ਇਹ ਹੋਲਸ ਕਿਸੇ ਚੀਜ਼ ਦੀ ਸੈੱਲ ਦੇ ਅੰਦਰ ਬਾਹਰ ਆਵਾਜਾਈ ਲਈ ਹੁੰਦੇ ਹਨ। Compounds called proteins and phospholipids make up most of the cell membrane. The phospholipids make the basic bag. The proteins are found around the holes and help move molecules in and out of the cell. Scientists describe the organization of the phospholipids and proteins with the fluid mosaic model proposed by Singer and Nicholson in 1972. According to this, the quasi-fluid nature of lipid enables lateral movement of proteins within the overall bilayer. This ability to move within the membrane is measured as its fluidity. One of the most important functions of the plasma membrane is the transport of the molecules across it. The membrane is selectively permeable to some molecules present on either side of it. Transport of the molecules in cell membrane occurs mainly by three processes, which are known as passive transport, osmosis, and active transport. For example,
sodium ion and potassium ion pump.
ਅੱਛਾ ਵਿਦਿਆਰਥੀਓ, ਇਹ ਸਾਰਾ ਸੀ ਸਾਡਾ ਅੱਜ ਦਾ ਵਿਸ਼ਾ। ਮੈਨੂੰ ਵਿਸ਼ਵਾਸ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਅੱਜ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਸੈੱਲਾਂ ਬਾਰੇ ਕਾਫੀ ਕੁਝ ਜਾਣ ਲਿਆ ਹੈ। ਆਓ ਹੁਣ ਜੋ ਕੁਝ ਅਸੀਂ ਅੱਜ ਪੜ੍ਹਿਆ ਹੈ ਉਸ ਦਾ ਸਾਰ ਕਰ ਲਈਏ। The cells are the basic units of life. Based on the organization of their cellular structures, biologists kept on dividing the cells into different types. On the basis of presence or absence of a true nucleus, the cells are divided into two groups, prokaryotic and eukaryotic. In prokaryotes, the nuclear material is not contained inside a membrane. Like a true nucleus, there is no membrane-bound organelle present in it. Most prokaryotes are single-celled, such as bacteria and algae. Eukaryotic cells are more complex, having a distinct nucleus, means a true nucleus, bounded by a double membrane. They contain internal membrane-bound structures called organelles. Examples of eukaryotic cells, which are cells present in animals, plants, fungi, etc. Both these cells perform most of the same kinds of functions. Despite of functional similarities, the differences are also clear. Prokaryotic cells are found in simple organisms, including bacteria and cyanobacteria. Eukaryotic cells are found in complex organisms, including all plants and animals. Both cell types have many ribosomes, but the ribosomes of the eukaryotic cells are larger and more complex than those of the prokaryotic cell. The cytoplasm of eukaryotic cells is filled with a large, complex collection of organelles, including a well-defined nucleus. The prokaryotic cell contains no membrane-bound organelles, and the nuclear material is also naked. Cell wall forms an outer covering for the plasma membrane of fungi and plants. One of the most important distinguishing features of plant cells is the presence of a cell wall. The main chemical components of the primary plant cell wall include cellulose in the form of organized microfibrils. The cell membrane is probably the most important organelle in the cell. It holds the cell together and keeps everything intact. The cell membrane surrounds all cells and it is selectively permeable, controlling the movement of substances in and out of cells. Scientists describe the organization of the phospholipids and proteins with the fluid mosaic model proposed by Singer and Nicholson in 1972. According to this, the quasi-fluid nature of lipid enables lateral movement of proteins within the overall bilayer. So students, I think today we have learnt enough about the cells. There are two major types, prokaryotes and eukaryotes, cell wall and cell membrane. Let us quickly check with some short questions what you have grabbed today. Be attentive, here are some questions. The first question is, what makes eukaryotes more advanced? The answer is, presence of a true nucleus makes eukaryotes more advanced. My next question is, give an example of a prokaryotic cell. Answer. A bacterial cell is an example of a prokaryotic cell. The next question is, name a cell organelle which is present in both prokaryotes and eukaryotes. Answer. Ribosomes are present in both prokaryotes and eukaryotes. My next question is, what is the function of cell wall? The answer is, cell wall gives shape to the cell and protects the cell from mechanical damage and infection. The next question is, name the main chemical components of the primary plant cell wall. The answer is, the main chemical components of the primary plant cell wall include cellulose in the form of organized microfibrils. The next question is, what is the function of pectins and glycans? The answer is, coextensive network of pectins provides the cell wall with the ability to resist compression. Glycans increase the tensile strength of the cell wall. The next question is, what are the functions of cell membrane? Answer. Cell membrane holds the cell together and keeps everything intact. Cell membrane surrounds all cells and it is selectively permeable, controlling the movement of substances in and out of cells. Students, thanks for your cooperation and attention. Looking forward to the next class. See you then. Thanks.